holding the camera with my arm. Hey folks, good morning and welcome to the beautiful countryside here in Surrey, Big Jet TV. Just out of respect for all of the men and women who gave their lives and fought so gallantly for us in whatever profession they were in. This is just a little walk round. This is the Runnymede Air Force's Memorial, and as it is Remembrance Sunday, I thought we'd do our bit for the Air Forces. And of course this is, we're talking about women and men, youngsters, mainly all youngsters, these guys and girls, so we're going to pay our respects. Briefly, we've got the guys up here have very kindly allowed us to have a quick look in. If the camera goes to the floor, that's just out of respect for people and faces and that sort of thing, for privacy. So I'm going to talk very quietly. We're going to have a look at a couple of panels where people's names are mentioned, and then we're going to go off for a little bit of a walk. But so here we go now, folks. Okay, so Commonwealth War Graves Commission. This is basically here, folks. Beautiful memorial. This is basically for the 20,000. This actually pays respect to 20,000 men and women who basically have no known grave. So if you can imagine a bomber crew who perhaps went on a mission and were lost over Germany, bodies not recovered, aircraft not recovered, and this is just basically to commemorate them. So let's just have a quick walk in. We have been given permission to, just not going to show any faces at the moment. So, okay, here we go, folks. Right, just quickly. That's pretty standard procedure though, isn't it? So this is, again, like I said, folks, I'm not sure when it was built, but beautiful gardens here. And just a little walk around the panels. I'm going to keep off the grass because I think it's only respectful. But as you can see here, each panel represents just names and names of people. And I know that there's a very good chance when you look at this, this is the Royal Air Force. Look at this, 1940, a particular point in time when Bomber Command was taking a massive hit, very basic technology with like Wellingtons, Hampdens, the early Sterling bombers, and you see things like this, which is shot down in 1940, combat over the Channel off Swansea at 4:35 a.m. PM, sorry, on the 20th of July, 1940. So look at that. And there are thousands of names here, folks, all obviously in alphabetical order. You can visit here. You can also go online to their website, where you can obviously trace as well. Through their systems, I believe that you can put a name in as well to trace a name, to find a name. And of course the panels go all the way around the building, right the way around. So just in terms of women, this is what's the feed like, Julie? Okay. So this is just one woman in particular, folks. Is it not? Okay. undercover agent. She gave up, basically. She gave up life as a poet, musician and children's writer to take one of the most perilous occupations of the Second World War, becoming the first female wireless operator in occupied France. So isn't that just one example of the brave, brave women who fought for us, you know, or worked on our behalf, but also flew. There's some blank panels here. Very interesting to see things like this, for example. I wonder if, because we've got Jamie Edgington, haven't we, as a pilot with with British Air Force. But look at that, Air Transport Auxiliary, Captain Miller, first officers, and there's Edgington there. Of course, look, as we go down here as well, flight engineer, wireless operator, British Overseas Airways. So that's a pretty big tally of people who I'm not sure how that's represented, but of course we've got Ferry Command as well. Ferry Command being the ferry pilots that brought the craft from overseas, and of course we've got as well. New Zealand Air Force as well, which is there's just so many here. These guys not having any known graves. So we'll just have a little wander around here. So now, 1945, Royal Air Force Squadron Leader. And these are Squadron Leaders Hill. So somewhere in here you will find Guy Gibson, because Guy Gibson, as far as I'm aware, does not have a known grave. So it would be quite interesting to find that, because he was a squadron leader, 1945, 44 squadron leader, I think. Royal Australian Air Force, look at this. Look at that. Incredible lineup. Look, even a. Is it okay? Should I stop then, Gillian? Go outside. Okay. 224 Squadron, Royal Australian Air Force. So that's possibly a Bomber Command crew member who was lost with his crew. So you obviously have a panel number which you can hunt down the panel where maybe a member of your family from way back when who fought in the war, because let's face it, we are still in that era where a lot of people had relatives who fought during the war, either in Bomber Command, Fighter Command, or wherever it might be, whichever Women's Auxiliary, so many different. So we will make our way out of here now. Okay, I'm going to walk down the. Okay, I'm coming back out the door now, Chilly. I know there's a 777 going out over the top of me, but I'm still on their property, so I'm just going to be, out of respect, not go straight from. Okay. Okay. Now, we do have the opportunity to. I don't know how long the walk would be, though. That's the question. let's just have a look and see how we go. Lots of people out walking the dogs, taking exercise, getting air in their lungs. That's what you need to do, folks, get air in your lungs. Hello, mate. Oh, brilliant. So here we go then. Let's everybody all right, Jilly? How's everybody doing? What was it last night then, folks? Okay, bye then. Bye then, yeah. Okay, what a shame. What a shame. Well, you know, you don't want, we don't. Yes. Who wrote that? Who wrote that? Yes. Yeah. But anyway, 860 odd people last night were playing the quiz, which was pretty incredible. Do you know what? There's a lot of people out walking, Jilly. I think it's going to be difficult to hold the camera up like this because there's just so many people. You know, I can show backs of heads, but you know, there's just lots of people walking, and I think that I'm just going to be, you know, encroaching on their privacy if I do this. So I think what we'll do, let's do this, okay? We've got a video lined up for you folks. Hold on a minute. Okay. We've got a video lined up for you folks. This one. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. Oh, mind that. No, we don't want that. Want that on there, don't we? So we got, oh. Following on from last night's debacle, how you doing, folks? We have got something lined up for you this morning. Now, if you remember, we went out to Schiphol earlier on this year. I think it was July. Was it July, Jilly? I think. Post lockdown one, and what a great time we had. We really put the effort in this time as well, folks. Went for a couple of days, and this was members only, remember. So it's only our members who get to see this stuff when I go away on these trips. Apart from sometimes, like we did with Cologne, obviously, because it's a corporate video that we're doing there. We obviously run it to Freeview, but of course only still having members only comments. But this particular one, Schiphol, spent a couple of days there, stayed at the Corendon again for the second time, and a great hotel, very reasonable rates, I've got to say, folks. And so we basically hunted down the planes and got some decent stuff there, it has to be said, far more so than what apparently I'm hearing Schiphol's doing at the moment, but that's something that we'll no doubt pick up in time. But this particular show is an edit that I did of the 2 days? 2 days we did out in Schiphol, visited most of the active runways, Schiphol, over the other side, went round to the McDonald's runway, I think, as well, did some stuff round there, not sure, but anyway, yeah, I think was that particular runway open? I don't know, but check it. This is my edit from those 2 days. Enjoy it. It's around about 1 hour and 57 minutes long, I think, and then we will come back. I'll be back by then, and we can get on with the next stuff. So enjoy this. Schiphol, Amsterdam, from July this year. Enjoy it. 747-8F Qatar cargo will leave in around 1 hour. So we do get a 747-8 today. Ben Brown telling us, thanks Ben. Wow, there's a lot of people here, man. Look at all the crowds down there. Yeah! Nice. Yeah. Oh, look who it is! Ha ha ha! Annelies, Annelies, Annelies. old picnic hamper and everything, look. It's great, isn't it? Here comes our Qatar freighter, folks. Here she comes. Ho, ho, ho. It's a veritable shop of sweeties and goodies. Isn't he a handsome fella, though? It's a fish. It's a fishy. It's a fishy. Straight in there, son. Blimey.
enjoying the decent weather. Yeah, beautiful. See the wing profile on the 350, relatively straight, but the outboard sections are slightly more flexed, but wow, what a beautiful aircraft, what a great shot. Look at it already, look at it flexed already. Okay, we are 3.6. Wow. Still getting my bearings here, so I caught a bit of a thermal there. Yeah. One of their old passenger jets converted to freight. Yes, got the KLM triple in visual. Oh yeah! Straight in front of us, man. That's like that Emirates freighter earlier on, isn't it? Yeah. What a shot. What was that, GP? Big raked wingtips, folks. Huge engines. Oh, lots of birds, man. 8 hours and 14 minutes live to YouTube. Take away an hour and a half, something like that. 7 hours or so. But anyway, it's been great being able to bring this to you folks, and so many new members experiencing the away day first class and super class membership streams finally. Sorry it's taken so long, I have to be honest with you, but that's old CV for you, isn't it? Watch this. Oh yeah. Wow, what a shot. Should get the old feet dried out. Sun is literally just coming up here, folks. I mean, she hasn't been up for long. That big beautiful star of ours. About another 3 billion years and it'll be out. I think we were, because he drove us right the way down the other end of the runway, didn't he? So, big old contingent of freighters down there. Saudi a queen during the 1940s. Gracious. Yeah. Oh look, they're closing Nippon's door. Wow, see right through those engines, man. Yeah.
that can actually induce a go around as well. If he floats it too far down the runway and he's not happy that he hasn't got enough runoff, I'd imagine that could result in a go around. Yeah. Good morning, thank you very much indeed. Alan Richard Yolden. Sarah Ragg, good morning. Gary Chandler, love Big Jet TV, love the app, works for me. Downside, do I watch on YouTube or Facebook? Question mark. Costa Troy. Thermal there. Ground effect, as we're going to call it now, I'm guessing. Yeah. There's that thermal.
tripped over the sticks. Wow, vortex. Nice. NHS 346, ex-Virgin Atlantic, going to Bournemouth. See right through those engines, man. Mike B will watch that 346 going over Winchester a little bit later. Lovely part of the world, Winchester. A little quiet place. David Bailey, good morning to you. Geraint, good morning to you. Yeah. Point this one. Just. Not really. Jazzy John enjoys a nice can of Coke in the morning. Flipping heck. Oh yeah? Oh, okay, I'm with you, yeah. Wow. Is it EasyJet, is it? Wow. Nice. Yeah, how cool was that, man? Look at him wagging the tail, man. Oh, yeah. Elevator's flexing. Wow. To commemorate the 747, the passenger 747, that is, ladies and gents. Need a bit of sunlight on him. Whoa, man. Wow, now that was a definite thermal landing. Wow. So once again, folks, as you can see, this is the spectators area designated here at Schiphol. And you can see the coffee van through there. I've got to say, that guy probably serves the best chips in Holland. Yeah. Wow. Special edition. On 06. So Emirates 777. Is that a 200 freighter? Bit of brake dust. Yeah, what a fantastic shot, man. It is just so cool. It is just so cool from this angle. Schiphol's delivered again, hasn't it? Even in COVID. Didn't see him. 747-8 for the second time, folks. If you missed it yesterday, you're gonna get it now. Brake dust. London Heathrow, London Gatwick, Schiphol, Frankfurt, Chicago, Los Angeles. probably be one of the hardest edits I'll ever have to do. Fantastic. Oh, it's a cheese roll as well. Tallest undercarriage setups ever, isn't it? Well, 330. 330 is what I can smoke it. Okay. They are herons, are they? Okay. Oh, take the babies. Oh. Oh, look. How sweet is that, man? Wow, that was early, man. feeding him. Yeah. Oh look, oh, he's got a fish. Careful. Yeah, but he dropped it. He dropped it because he couldn't handle it. Look, he couldn't. It's too big. It's too big. He's got. Simon Eyes, yeah, love that whine of those G's, man. Well, let it rip, son. Yeah. See the undercarriage tilting forwards, folks. That's what we talked about on the quiz a while back. Which way does the main gear tilt? Hey, easy, son. Here we go. Yeah. I bet you've got a good one there, didn't you?
Absolutely. Perfect.
I just saw the blue, man. Here we go. Whereas this is the Teddy Thomas of the aviation world. Nice moustache. I shit. tracks. Wow, the Spitfire. Here we go, look. Yeah, go on, son. Peter Stuhl. How did you do, fella, in the quiz? It was you got top 10, wasn't it?
One of the first quizzes I managed to get top 10, and I also went in a couple of times on the PHPST.
Oh yeah.
But you know, after
PHPST, what's that?
PHPST as well, and after a couple of halfway in, you know, I watched it up a bit.
Oh, okay, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. Right, listen, man. Thank you. Thanks for your company today, man. Peter and Sem
Yeah.
has been. What was your mate's name?
Gaia.
Naya.
Gaia.
Gaia. Sem and Gaia with us, and Peter, of course, from 6 o'clock this morning, wasn't it? I think somewhere around about there, 6:30, something like that. Early doors, man, early doors. But wow, what a fantastic day. Those arrivals on 06. And you got some great photos, you got some great footage.
Absolutely.
And we got some great members. Folks, thank you so much. Really appreciate your... Oh, look, 2E736. Should we just grab that?
Snel.
Attention, passengers for Southwest Airlines.
How about that then, folks? That was pretty cool. A little bit of music, blah blah blah. But one thing I haven't noticed before, which I noticed just then, was on the Orange Pride that they put the Dutch flag pinstripe all the way through underneath the orange, and then it blends into the normal livery into the back. Very, very clever the way they've done that, and a fantastic aircraft. And hopefully, I don't know if they're still planning to keep her flying. I'd imagine that that would probably be one of the last 777s to go if they were to retire any 777s. But hey, it is just one of those things that we're going to have to see. Saudi Arabian 747, that position next to the early morning one that we did was absolutely fantastic, man. So well worth getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning for that one, I can assure you. But yeah, so funny yesterday's quiz, folks, as well. But the other thing was that, you know, I said about French blue and French B, and we got it wrong. And it was, I said, is this French blue? And the correct answer was French blue. And you were going, it's French B. Well, it was actually French blue, but that was pre-French. That was pre-JetBlue taking them to court and telling them to change their name, and they changed it to French B. So you remember that? So it was a French blue aircraft, but understandably confusing a lot of people out there who obviously know that French B is the operating airline now anyway. Whatever. Lots of people been down to Tesco's and asked if they've got any 380s. And what else? 828 players, folks, last night. Unbelievable. I mean, that's the biggest amount of players we've had on the quiz since we started. I seem to remember, wasn't the first one like 200 or something, Jilly? Anyway, back to the action now, folks. What we're going to show you now is I think from memory, this was a members only show from Brooklands, and we're focusing on the Concorde. The guys out there gave us full access to it. Really nice people to meet up with, the engineers, ex-crew from the Concorde days, and also interestingly, I think on this one as well, we get to raise and lower the nose, which has been lovingly restored by some of the mechanics who are like apprentices who basically got the nose working again. I mean, what an incredible thing to do. So you see basically the three different, I think there's three different positions of the nose. One for obviously at completely closed, and then when I say closed, completely up, and then you've got the taxiing one, and then you've got the approach one. So the nose is at its fullest angle as the aircraft approaches. I think that's right. And then 3 degrees is when she taxis, and then she goes completely up when she's in supersonic flight. So there we go. Some shout outs to a few of you guys. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day. There we are. Chris Scapaloo, Martin Cooley, thanks for the show. Brandon Planespotter. Yes, Brooklands, I really went there after COVID. Yeah, I mean, it's a great place to visit, folks. I mean, these places that we get to visit are really good quality places. It's a living, working museum as well at Brooklands. Of course, they've got the Wellington bomber there. They've got an amazing a historical car collection there, and of course this was the home where they used to do the Brooklands race circuit. I think motor racing was actually born at Brooklands. This is where they built the Wellington bombers as well during the war, and it's still you still see remnants of the runway there, which is obviously no longer in use because they've got the Mercedes test tracks there and all that sort of stuff. But all of these aircraft, apart from, I think, the Concorde, they flew in, like the VC-10 that's there as well. So it's a good look around the Concorde. Just bear in mind, folks, this is the raw live show. So right at the beginning, we've got issues. No, and that's what I'm talking about. So be a bit patient, folks. Don't go, oh, I'm not watching this. This is crap. You know, I don't want to be a member anymore because Chill out, man. Chill out. And to any Trump supporters that I upset by congratulating Biden, I do apologise if that's upset you. We've had some rage quitters, which is fair enough. If you're an avid supporter of Trump, then I understand that. I fully understand that. But you know, do whatever you have to do. It's fine. It's no problem at all. Yeah, all I was doing was congratulating him, like you do. It's etiquette, isn't it? You know, at the end of a game of golf, you don't go, right, sod off, mate, you won. You know, it's like you go up and shake their hand and you say, well done, mate, I'll beat you next time, sort of thing. You know, have a bit of a laugh, bit of banter about it. Don't just go sort of like, you know, like... Anyway... Right, okay, let's get on the Brooklands. Now, after Brooklands, folks, we will immediately stay on it, because after Brooklands, I'm going to play out the edited piece, which is... just wondering, Julie, should we not play out the edited piece first, and then they can see... Are you going to have a go at me? I'm just wondering whether it might be better that way round. You see the edited piece first, so that you can see. Just, I think it would probably be better, and then you can see the sort of like the uncut version of it afterwards. Yeah, I think we'll do it that way round. Just tell me when you're ready and you're loaded. Les Tankard, loving the cap. Yeah, this is the other this is the other variant that you can get, of course. But be careful, folks. Be careful. If you're going to order anything for Christmas, ladies and gents, or even for a birthday, make sure you get loads and loads of notice. I think we're still okay for getting them to you for Christmas, even overseas, but just as soon as you possibly can. There has to be a cut-off point. We will probably be able to find that out from the post office. However, also, folks, free sticker. I'm going to open up the post office box on Monday, and mind you, I might be able to do that online, and then we'll give you an address. Question is am I able to go down to that PO box during COVID times? I don't know, but we'll give you that PO box address somewhere where you can send in a self-addressed stamped envelope. Look, like I said, if it hasn't got stamps on it, you know, don't fret. You know, we'll still, you know, if you forget to put the stamp on it, it does help us obviously if you put a stamp on it, but it's not the end of the world. If there's no stamp on it, it's fine. I'll put a stamp on it. We'll just buy a bulk load of stamps. It's the least we can do. So yeah, just make sure that it's self-addressed. That's what's really important. So an envelope inside an envelope. So you send me an envelope inside an envelope, if you see what I mean, to that PO box address, and we'll obviously bring that to you. Okay, there we go. Yes, here we go. Are you ready, Jilly? So here we go, folks. This is the Brooklands edit. Okay, this is an edit that's taken from the from the live show. I think there's one little intro to camera that I did post, which just worked quite well. But all the other stuff, you'll see it in there. And thanks again to all the folks at Brooklands. Great bunch of guys there. Make sure you look them up. They're online. So here it is. Here's the edit right now, folks. Enjoy. Hello everybody and welcome to a very special show here at Brooklands, Surrey in the UK. Today we'll be showcasing Concorde Delta Golf, going around the aircraft with flight engineer Ian Smith. But before we do that, let's get some history on the aircraft with Concorde lead trainer John Carter.
Concorde is very closely linked to Brooklands. One of our most celebrated engineers, Sir Barnes Wallis, was working here with Vickers, and he started to experiment with supersonic flight. Indeed, he built models here which were destined to fly supersonically. The other work that Barnes Wallis did was associated with aerodynamics, in particular in relation to the engine intakes, where the air has to be slowed from 1,350 miles an hour to 500 miles an hour within 11 feet in order for the engines to operate efficiently. As we moved into the development phase of Concorde, the French and the British governments agreed to collaborate in the development of Concorde, and the first meetings of the teams to develop that aircraft took place in Paris and here at Brooklands in 1961. So from then on, a lot of the design work was done here, and as we moved into the development phase of the aircraft, the teams agreed that production of the parts for Concorde would be split between the two teams. Certain bits of all 20 Concordes were built in the UK, and so the other bits were built in France. The teams then swapped those pieces to the two construction sites, Filton for the British Concordes and Toulouse for the French Concordes. And 30% of the airframe of all 20 Concordes were built right here at Brooklands. And that includes the 90 miles of wiring that every Concorde contained. So that is why Brooklands has become known, in our view, as the home of Concorde. Delta Golf was the first of the 8 British production Concordes, but she never actually went into airline service. Instead, she was used for 3 very special purposes. First of all, she was a demonstration aircraft. She flew around the world demonstrating Concorde to airlines and governments. Secondly, in the summer of 1975, Delta Golf was used as a training aircraft for the first generation of British Airways Concorde pilots. And lastly, Delta Golf was the Concorde that did most of the test flying to obtain the certificate of airworthiness. In other words, its license to carry passengers. And it was during that phase of her life that Delta Golf has become truly immortal, because she was the first Concorde and therefore the first aircraft in history to carry 100 passengers at twice the speed of sound. When Delta Golf was taken out of service in 1981, she was taken to Filton, and she was acquired by British Airways in 1983 and was essentially used for spares. When Concorde was taken out of service in 2003, British Airways gave Concorde to the museum, but she had to be cut into 5 pieces and transported from Filton to here, and over the course of 3 years, together with our team of engineers and a contractor, we put her back together again into what you see today. So thank you to Concorde lead trainer John Carter there, giving us some great history on the Brooklands Concorde. Now we're going to be meeting up with Ian Smith, who was a flight engineer on the Concorde, and he's going to be walking us around the entire aircraft, inside the cabin and up to the cockpit. This nose right at the tip was around about, what was it,
127 degrees centigrade. That was the limit. The reason they chose that was that the aircraft was built out of aluminium-based alloys, and to give a reasonable fatigue life, they had to restrict it to that speed so as it wouldn't overheat and then reduce the fatigue life. Yes, the noses, they could reach 127, and if we were cruising along in supersonic flight, if it tried to go above that, if the autopilot was flying it, it would automatically slow the aeroplane down to bring it back to that limit. That was the factor involved in that Mach 2 speed.
You've got some deflectors there.
The reason they had that is when the aeroplane was flying at low speeds, sort of below 250 knots, say, it was to channel the airflow down and make the airflow closer to the fuselage so as the rudders became more effective.
Now, one of the big things that is quite apparent is the fact that you are around about 30 feet from the cockpit to the nose gear, resulted in a huge turning circle.
Look at the VC-10 just behind Concorde. See where the nose wheel is that compared to the flight deck, the cockpit of that. So when you're taxiing and going round corners and things, you were sitting near the front of the aeroplane. On Concorde, when you come back to this and you see the distance,
Yes.
the pilots actually went right over the grass to turn.
Yes.
And because it's so long out there to the flight deck, if we are taxiing on a sort of slightly rough taxiway or even in the runway, if you were down the back of the cabin and looked all the way up to the flight deck, you could see us bouncing up and down at the front of the aeroplane. Although it's an aluminium-based alloy, it's slightly different to other materials that were used in aircraft, but it was still effectively low cost or lower cost than going to things like stainless steel and titanium.
And of course, such a high undercarriage.
Yes, the whole undercarriage, the mains as well, it had to be off the ground because as you rotated to come off the ground and the back of the aeroplane came very close to the ground. It's a totally different aerodynamics compared to a subsonic wing. The shape of it changed quite considerably. You might just catch along the leading edge the way it curves up and down.
Yes, yes.
It's three-dimensional. You see how thin the wing is at the outer part there? That's actually a fuel tank as well. All that wingtip contained 2.5 tons of fuel. So the designers did an amazing job, which is really a very tiny aeroplane with a lot of little tanks, 13 fuel tanks in this thing. As the airplane accelerates, the centre of lift moves rearwards in the wing. So what we did, we moved fuel to alter the centre of gravity, so it just matched the centre of lift movement in the wing. When we were at 190 knots, say in the outer approach, we were using the same amount of fuel as we did cruising at twice the speed of sound.
I believe this was a skid on the initial aircraft.
The very first one was a skid, and then the next one had the little wheels, and it had this concept. If we're training new pilots, the very odd occasion you'd maybe see the little wheel marks. This is a vastly developed engine. The original engines, I think they developed maybe probably about 12,000 pounds of thrust, and then they gradually increased to 20,000. The reason they chose this engine was that in supersonic flight, a jet engine will only accept a supersonic airflow up to about 1.5 times the speed of sound. We had to slow it down, so we had this intake in the front to reduce that. In 11 feet of intake, it goes from twice the speed of sound to half the speed of sound. For the thrust we required on takeoff, it would really have meant we had to carry an extra engine. So we resorted to the reheater afterburning. All it really was injecting fuel at the back of the engine, lighting it up, expanded the air a bit more and gave us the extra thrust. We sprayed fuel in, and the flame attached to this gutter, they called it, held the flame alight and working for the reheat. This is the rear cargo door, and that's the bulkhead. This part here is where the galley would be. The rear doors were in the galley area, these doors. When it came to the museum, this was really just a shell, so they decided to put certain things on display. These are the airlines that were going to buy Concorde.
Yes.
So a lot of these airlines decided they weren't going to go to the expense of it. And here you can see the example of the seating. It was a small aeroplane, but it had to be this size. It couldn't be like a jumbo jet to fly at these speeds. But we only ever put 100 seats in it.
This nose fairing actually came off the one at Filton, so there was an accident at Heathrow. So DG donated her nose, the one that's now at Filton, and then this is the one at Filton. But it was halfway through being refurbed when she stopped flying. So all the systems in the movable part of the nose down there wasn't there. So we had to effectively recreate all of that. Everything in kind of the fuselage structure, so everything under the floor here was still there. The procedure for this specific aircraft is slightly different. That we have to pull the emergency release handle to get the nose down. But shall I just go through it now then? Shall I start? Right,
definitely.
So first you need to turn hydraulic pressure on, and then it works as per it should do from the normal nose and visor selector valve.
So that goes into the nose.
So yes, at this point I would be able to just go to the next section, which is nose 5 degrees, and then the nose comes down. there should be a nice click. Sure is.
Okay.
So this is the point where she was misbehaving, and she's working this morning. There we go.
We had to comply with various air traffic instructions and things.
Yes.
But if we went above 270 knots, that's 300 miles an hour, then we streamlined the aeroplane. We put the nose and visor up, and it became fully streamlined. And then, of course, as we slowed down through 300, we put it all down again.
Yes.
So we went to the mid position, as James had mentioned there, 5 degrees with the visor down, and then just before landing we'd pop the nose fully down. Final approach, but the pilot would be flying about 10.5 degrees nose up attitude, so you wouldn't see over the nose.
Well, thank you to Ian and John and James, of course, for showing us around Delta Gulf. And of course, great to see that nose still working after all these years. And congratulations to James for making that happen. Now we're going to go on board the Concorde simulator here at Brooklands, meeting up with Ian again. So let's go fly.
So all the checks were completed, and we wait, get the air traffic clearance, and there we'd go. So that's the throttle's been pushed fully forward, the engines would power up, the reheats would light up, and the aircraft would accelerate. We'd about 100 knots, we should have a check of all the engines. There was a little green light for each engine, would tell us we'd full power. We'd get to the decision speed V1. If we had a failure before that, we would stop. If the failure was after, we'd take failure into the air and sort it out then. We get to the point, rotate, pilot pull the control column back, and on our instruments we'd pitch up to a preset position, and the airplane would rotate and climb away. In the Atlantic, between the positions, the waypoints in the Atlantic, at a subsonic aeroplane it's about an hour between these points. On Concorde it's 20 minutes. So during that time there's various checks to be done. So you are actually working virtually the whole time during these flights.
Okay.
It's not one of these aeroplanes, you get airborne, put the autopilot and then read the paper.
Yes.
It's an aeroplane you had to monitor the whole time.
Yes, yes, right.
During the cruise, we mentioned the flight engineer moving fuel.
Yeah.
That was mainly during the acceleration up to supersonic speeds.
Yes.
But in the cruise, we trimmed the aeroplane. We had an instrument down in the bottom that showed where our flying controls were positioned.
Interesting.
And we moved fuel to position that in the most streamlined position, because that was the least drag, more fuel efficient. So we pumped fuel fore and aft and left and right to keep the controls in the streamline. The Concorde was a very controllable aeroplane. The performance, for example, taking off from New York with a very special noise abatement procedure. And we could achieve that because the aeroplane was so controllable. In an automatic landing, because the engines are controlled electronically, and because the flying controls are electronic, fly-by-wire, it was very smooth and with little wings, so you crosswinds didn't have a huge problem. We always took off full power. The aeroplane is actually just above landing weight. It's a very light aircraft.
Wow.
What we would do is we would fly a circuit and overshoot, not touch down, and then the next one we would land. So the aeroplane was light, full power. It really went off like a scalded cat. The pilots there, the idea of circuit height, 1,500 feet.
Circuit height 1,500 feet.
The training captain always got clearance above that. I won't tell you what the record is how high we've got in the past, but we often exceeded that in the first takeoff.
Wow.
Because it was a case of you got off the ground, you got to 250 knots, and you got the reheats all throttled back.
Yeah.
You had to nail it.
Yes.
So things happen much quicker. So to get the pilot, although you'd been in the simulator and you'd done all this couldn't replicate with a real airplane.
Yeah.
There you go, folks. How about that? Hold on, let me turn it off because it's a delay. Pull up, pull up. Sorry about that. So we've got Air Canada 777 coming out and another BA 777 headed to Shanghai. So we'll grab those, folks. Skies are slightly clearer now, so we'll definitely get them going out. But now what you're about to see is the uncut part of that. So don't forget at the beginning, out, here, I'm. So, anyway, so there's a lot of mic drop out at the beginning. This is back in the days when the old mic and the good boys and girls at Saramonic sorted us out on that one as well. So if you're ever looking for a good microphone system, folks, head up to Saramonic because they do good mics basically. But anyway, here it is, Brooklands, the uncut from that very day. Enjoy. See you in a bit. Cheers. You are, Jilly. Give me a countdown. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to Brooklands here in Surrey, UK. And we're very pleased to have some esteemed people with us today. One in particular, John. John, you're a Concorde lead trainer at Brooklands here. Right. What a fantastic aircraft we have here today. Some history on it.
Sure. Well, the Concorde is very closely linked to Brooklands, and this goes back quite a long time, in the period immediately after the First World War, when one of our most celebrated engineers, Sir Barnes Wallis, was working here with Vickers, and he started to experiment with supersonic flight. Indeed, he built models here which were destined to fly supersonically in 1949. And his concept was that a supersonic airliner needed to have variable geometry wings, in other words, swing wings. That was his concept. Now, that was never taken forward into Concorde, but it was used in military aircraft, for example, the Tornado. Yes. But what the other work that Barnes Wallis did was associated with aerodynamics, in particular in relation to the engine intakes, where the air has to be slowed from 1,350 miles an hour to 500 miles an hour within 11 feet in order for the engines to operate efficiently. Yes. So that's a lot of the work that Barnes Wallis did. Then, as we moved into the development phase of Concorde, the French and the British governments agreed to collaborate in the development of Concorde, and the first meetings of the teams to develop that aircraft took place in Paris and here at Brooklands in 1961. So from then on, a lot of the design work was done here, and as we moved into the development phase of the aircraft, the teams agreed that production of the parts for Concorde would be split between the two teams. Certain bits of all 20 Concordes were built in the UK, and the other bits were built in France. The teams then swapped those pieces to the two construction sites, Filton for the British Concordes and Toulouse for the French Concordes. And 30% of the airframe of all 20 Concordes were built right here at Brooklands. And that includes the 90 miles of wiring that every Concorde contained. So that is why Brooklands has become known, in our view, as the home of Concorde.
So fascinating and so good. Her part here. Did she get...
That's a good question, because she couldn't land here because the runway was too long, and indeed no Concorde ever took off from here, of course. But when Delta Golf was taken out of service in 1981, she was taken to Filton, and she was remaining in the ownership of British Aircraft Corporation, was acquired by British Airways in 1983 and was essentially used for spares. When Concorde was taken out of service in 2003, British Airways gave Concorde to the museum, but she had to be cut into 5 pieces and transported from Filton to here, and over the course of 3 years, together with our team of engineers and a contractor, we put her back together again into what you see today.
And what a fantastic job you have done. Right now, the other... This...
Correct. She was actually the first of the 8 production aircraft. The first aircraft built in each country was a prototype, followed by a pre-production aircraft. Delta Golf was the first of 8 production aircraft. but she never went into airline service. But she did do most of the test flying, first of all to do the proving flights, but also she was the aircraft that did most of the test flying to obtain the certificate of airworthiness. And it was during that phase that she has become immortal, because Delta Golf was Concorde, and therefore the first aircraft in history to carry 100 passengers at sand. So she's a special Concorde.
Those 100 passengers, were they
was acquired by British Airways.
Yes, wonderful. Well, John, thank you so much. Lightning, I'm sure our viewers would that more Concorde. Who's a flight engineer and what Concorde. Hello there, Ian.
Good morning, Chair. To just correct you there, although I had a pilot's license, I would actually fly the aeroplane. We had two pilots, a captain, a co-pilot, and a flight engineer. And because Concorde, when it entered service, it could do an automatic landing, the first aircraft that could do that on entry to service. So we trained flight engineers to fly the aircraft using the automatic systems. And we did this in a repetitive training thing. That was in case of capacitation of both pilots, but that didn't happen.
Okay, well, at least we that. Ian, just one second. We appear to have a slight audio issue. I can see what's. Just stand by. Let me just see. Okay, we're going to go for a check. Okay, just on a check again, Gilly. This is live.
That's good.
That's the beauty of live TV. Okay, we've got full power on the batteries. Oh, Ian, my apologies. So, you obviously worked on the test program with Concorde, or
No,
not the initial test program.
No.
You're far young for that, I can see.
Yeah.
But you did obviously. What if we have a walk? You were an engineer as well on the aircraft.
Yes, flight engineers had a maintenance engineer. They call aspects of maintenance. If we were diverted somewhere and we could fix it.
Wow! So as well as being a pilot, you were also trained on the engineering side of the
Yes,
aircraft as well.
Yeah.
Wow!
That's the
I see. Okay, Gilly, are you saying that we still have the issues? What is the problem? What is the problem? Okay, interesting. Okay. Is it? Okay. Sorry about this. Okay, so I've got full power on the. Okay, just going to go for a check, Gilly. Going for a check. Are we good? That's more reliable than this.
It's technology.
Yeah, isn't it great? Fantastic. Okay, so I'm now talking. Do we have audio, Gilly? There is a leaf blower behind us that's making a lot of noise. Yeah. Is that leaf blower the problem that's causing the issue? The feedback? Ah, I see. Okay, okay. That's not good. That's obviously no. Okay. Right, right. I'm wondering if we should. I'm wondering if we should just. Should we just keep going, Jelly? Okay, okay. So, Ian, I'm going to hand you the mic now. Be careful not to touch that little grey button there.
Right.
If you keep it down there. I'm going to now lift this onto my back. Okay. A little bit Heathrow Robinson. Okay, now we're going to lift this up. And we're going to take a walk. So, Ian, take us around your beautiful aircraft. So, initially, let's start at the nose. Why not start at the nose?
Yep.
I mean, what was interesting was the whole concept of friction and heat. And this nose right at the tip was around about, what was it,
127 degrees centigrade. That was the limit. The reason they chose that was that the aircraft was built out of aluminium-based alloys, and to give a reasonable fatigue life, they had to restrict it to that speed so as it wouldn't overheat and then reduce the fatigue life. So yes, the noses, they could reach 127, and if we were cruising along in supersonic flight, if it tried to go above that, if the autopilot was flying it, it would automatically slow the aeroplane down to bring it back to that limit. We didn't often reach that limit, to be honest, but that was the factor involved in that Mach 2 speed.
Interesting. Okay, well that's interesting news there. And of course you've got some deflectors there, so that's just aerodynamic deflectors on the for vortex, I guess, for steering the vortex.
Right. It wasn't a step so as you could clean the windows.
No.
I might add. The reason they had that is when the aeroplane was flying at low speeds, sort of below 250 knots, say, it was to channel the airflow down and make the airflow closer to the fuselage so as the rudders became more effective. So in low speed flights, say after takeoff, for example, where you need a lot of rudder control, if you had an engine failure, you needed that airflow to be effective round the rudder. So all it was really in low speed flight to make the rudders effective.
Wow, just that small panel there did, it had such a served such
you can
a big
see
purpose.
it sort of tilted down slightly,
Yes,
but
yes.
a lot of development went in to that to make it work.
Yes, of course. Okay, so just moving on now to the undercarriage. Now, one of the big things that is quite apparent when we stand back here is the fact that you are in around about 30 feet from the cockpit to the front, to the nose gear, as they call it.
Yes.
It's not really the nose gear in this instance, is it? It's sort of like the midway gear, but it just resulted in a huge turning circle for the aircraft, especially
if you have a look at the VC-10 just behind Concorde, see where the nose wheel is that compared to the flight deck, the cockpit of that. So when you're taxiing and going round corners and things, you were sitting near the front of the aeroplane. On Concorde, when you come back to this and you see the distance, the pilots actually went right over the grass to turn.
Yes.
Or else they...
Let's have a walk over here just so that we can give our viewers a real good idea of what we're talking about here. The fact that yes, you would literally, when you're sort of turning onto the runway, for example, you would be overstepping the grass and
yes. Wow. So that was a thing that they got used to. It's just a different sort of technique. So they were way in front of the nose gear, and because it's so long out there to the flight deck, if we are taxiing on a sort of slightly rough taxiway or even in the runway, if you were down the back of the cabin and looked all the way up to the flight deck, you could see us bouncing up and down at the front of the airplane.
Wow.
It was designed to be flexible. If it's all stiff, that causes damage.
Very interesting.
That was a flexible bit of the airplane.
Yes. So it was quite a flexible frame then.
Yes.
Wow. And I guess you were mentioning the alloys earlier on. I believe it was Rolls-Royce who actually developed a specific alloy to deal with the high temperatures of friction. And
well, there was various companies in Britain developed, although it's an aluminium-based alloy, it's slightly different to other materials that were used in aircraft, but it was still effectively low cost or lower cost than going to things like stainless steel and titanium, which airplanes going faster had to do.
Yes.
But so, to make it,
even so, certain components still had to be made of titanium just to...
Right. The bit you're talking about was really to do with the engine. There was lots of different materials throughout the engine, and
to deal with the high
heat. With the temperatures that it would reach.
Yes. Because it was a jet engine.
Yes, yeah, but they used titanium in other engines as well, even at that time. But it was a much more strain on this engine flying at these speeds, and really the sort of about 80–90% of every flight, the throttles were full forward and the engines were rotating at close to their maximum RPM.
For most of the flight?
For most of the flight.
Wow.
And we always used maximum power for takeoff. Compared to other aircraft, they work out what weight they are and they can calculate the power they need. So often in other airliners, they use a graduated power system, so the engines aren't fully stressed.
Yes.
Unlike the Concorde engine, we always used the full power. That gave us a better climb away performance.
I see.
From airports, and got us higher quicker.
So, noticing how small the wheels are at the front of the aircraft compared to the ones on the main gear, obviously these wheels were subjected to a tremendous amount of heat because the takeoff speed was considerably higher than your average aircraft.
Yes, by the time you go off the ground, you're close to sort of 200 miles an hour.
Wow. And of course, such a high undercarriage, there was a reason behind that, was there?
Yes, the whole undercarriage, the mains as well, had to be off the ground, because as you rotated to come off the ground, the front of the aircraft went up and the back of the airplane came very close to the ground. So if you had a short undercarriage, well, the back of the airplane would touch it down.
Yes, yes. Yep. Okay, interesting. So one of the designs that were built into the aircraft with regards to the wing, and in order to keep the aerodynamics as they had been required for supersonic flight, was to actually extend the length of the wing in order to keep the wing a relatively low profile.
Yes, that was one reason. It's a totally different aerodynamics compared to a subsonic wing.
Of course, yes.
There wasn't a sort of aerofoil section that you could describe on like the VC-10 over there. So the shape of it changed quite considerably. You might just catch along the leading edge the way it curves up and down.
Yes, yes.
It's three-dimensional.
Yes, it is.
And like all of these things, the idea was to fly at twice the speed of sound, but you also had to fly slowly. So it did involve compromises, and Concorde had a lot of compromises there. To fly slowly, we didn't have any high-lift devices like flaps and slats that you'd find in a normal airliner.
Yes.
We relied purely on this very curvaceous shape of the wing there.
So there were no slats?
Nope.
Wow.
And as we increased the angle, as we slowed down, along the leading edge, it would create swirling air vortices. That you can see the tip just kinks up there.
I'm just looking, getting a good shot of that now.
And these vortices aerodynamically changed the shape of the wing and let it fly. as I say, it's a compromise, because the downside of creating lift like that, it also creates a lot of drag.
Yes.
If you create drag, you use more fuel. You need a lot of power.
Yes.
So we didn't like flying slowly. We kept as fast as we could,
Yes.
as long as we could.
Yes.
And well, one thing was the fuel consumption. When we were at 190 knots, say in the outer approach, we were using the same amount of fuel as we did cruising at twice the speed of sound. So the phenomenal increase in fuel. So we did fly slowly for as short a time as possible.
So a lot of that would have been down to the drag.
The drag
the
created.
increased fuel.
Well, it's these vortices
Yes.
round the wing.
Yes,
You
yes.
don't get lift without drag.
Yes, yes. Okay, so let's move on to the underside of the aircraft now. I noticed earlier on, of course, you've got your four set of four wheels on the mains,
Yep.
and the actual angle of attack, the flare during landing was quite critical, was it?
Yes, the flare, if the angle went above about 12 degrees, the flight engineer would be monitoring the angle. And if you went above 12 degrees, there was a possibility you might touch the little tail wheel at the back.
Yes.
The bottom of the engines, the thrust reversers. But
I believe there was an aircraft that was actually quite heavily damaged, not a British one, of course.
no, that's right. Yes, that was in early days. Yeah.
Right, where they actually touched the...
They touched the back and they damaged the back of the engines. They did get it back to Paris and they did repair it. It went back into service for a short time, but they didn't need all the aeroplanes by that point, so the aeroplane was eventually scrapped, in fact.
What a shame. There were only 20 of the aircraft built.
20, and that included the 6 sort of prototype development aeroplanes. So Air France and ourselves, we got 7 aeroplanes in the end.
Yes.
We were going to 5 aeroplanes,
Yes.
but 2 remained unsold, so eventually British Airways have effectively inherited them.
Wow.
And of course we put them into service.
Yes.
And we used all 7 of the aircraft.
So tell us about this. This is something that we commonly see on all aircraft, even up to the modern day aircraft.
Yes.
You got a little bit of a story about this.
Well,
Tell
this
us
is
what it is exactly.
Well, it's a ram air turbine, and lots of aeroplanes have a similar sort of thing. Basically, a little propeller either drives hydraulic pumps. In the case of Concorde, some drove an electrical generator. We had this really for very bad emergency system, the last resort, effectively, and we could select it from the flight deck, drop it down. That was part of the thing. So if you lost all 4 engines, you needed to maintain control of the aircraft, and we needed hydraulics for that.
Yes.
But we also needed electrics to give us a minimum amount of equipment to be electrically powered. So we had an electrical generator that was powered by one of these little hydraulic pumps, so we could come down. But this was really just to maintain control as long as you could.
Yes. Okay, so that is something that once it's down, it's down. It can only be retracted on the ground.
On the ground, that's right.
I see. Interesting.
We had one aeroplane once that did come down in supersonic flight, but this had never been envisaged, because even losing 4 engines, you'd only resort to using this because engines would be windmilling, still giving you hydraulics and,
Yes.
and that. But when you come subsonic, then you pop that down. But this came down supersonic flight, and they were a bit concerned as to what might happen if it would fall off or something. But in actual fact, it's robustly built and it was okay.
Yes, it withheld, and it's
Yeah.
got a sort of like it's got an aerodynamic leading edge to it anyway. The actual arm itself. So
that's right.
It's
just up inside, it's just a shaft that goes up,
Yes.
and it just runs into 2 little
if
pumps.
anything, it's actually the doors that are the most unaerodynamic piece of it.
That's
I'd
right.
imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, so just moving on to the I guess you'd call them the cowls, would you? The engine covers, these
Yeah, well, the whole thing is a nacelle.
Yes.
At the back here, we've got the nozzles that are when they swing right round,
Yep.
and it reverses the thrust. So the jet air thrust comes out the back of the engine, and it's redirected, like the engine over there.
Yes.
The number 3 engine, and it pushes the thrust forward and gives you braking. Normally only used, well, always used on landing for stopping, all 4 of them.
Yes.
But because we didn't have any sort of high lift devices or spoilers that you have in a conventional aeroplane, we could, below 30,000 feet and 370 knots, we could reverse the 2 inboard engines to act as a braking system as well. So if we had to
like speed
descend
brakes?
quickly, it was just acting like a speed brake.
Interesting.
Spoilers are like speed brakes.
Yes, yes, of course.
But
How
we didn't have them.
So as we step back here, we just get a great look at the, of course, the tail. So impressive. Such a huge tail. And obviously that's the housing for the stabilizer there. The horizontal segment is the housing for the stabilizer, and what, of course, people will notice is that there is no
tailplane.
No tailplane per se.
No. So the wings and the controls at the back of the wing did both pitch control and roll control.
Yes. Just get a really good profile of that wing there. If we can move round here, that's a good shot there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, you can see how thin the wing was and how curvaceous it actually is.
Beautiful.
And it had to be like that to create this sort of vortex lift.
Yes. Yes, because that was the they were all the sort of physics that people were dealing with at those times, that they were sort of still in their early stages of understanding, I guess.
Oh, the number of different ideas to try and make a wing that would have this compromise for supersonic flight and low-speed flight. And you see how thin the wing is at the outer part there. That's actually a fuel tank as well.
Is it really?
Because each
right
wing
out on the outer leading edge there?
yes, from where the control is underneath that powers the control surface. All that wingtip contained 2.5 tons of fuel, each wingtip. So the designers did an amazing job to pack so much fuel into this
They certainly
thing,
did.
which is really a very tiny aeroplane with a lot of little tanks, 13 fuel tanks in this thing.
Goodness.
And if you look up at the tail there, from where you see the tail wheel, the forward end of that bulkhead is the back bulkhead of a fuel tank, and it goes forward to roughly where the G is in the registration.
Really? That's a
that
tank
held 11
itself.
tons of fuel.
Did it really? So your CG was something that was quite critical then in terms of load.
Yes.
Because obviously with an aircraft of this type,
as the airplane accelerates, the centre of lift moves rearwards in the wing, so we had to trim it.
Yes.
If we tried to do that with the control surfaces at the trailing edge of the wing there, they would be in a very uneconomical high drag position.
Yes.
So what we did, we moved fuel to alter the centre of gravity, so it just matched the centre of lift movement in the wing.
I see. Interesting. Okay, and just finishing off right at the back with which I believe this was a skid initially on the initial aircraft, and then they changed
the very first one was a skid, and then the next one had the little wheels and it had this concept. It's not in the ideal position on the airliner because the original aeroplane, the first prototype, it was shorter than this, and they had the top of the fuselage curved down and the bottom curved up. But as you can see here, the top of the aeroplane is flat and it's only the bottom curves up.
Yes.
So obviously the rear wheel moved up a bit.
I see. So how often did you actually use that then? How often?
Very, very rarely. The very odd occasion you'd maybe see the little wheel marks as it rubbed across the sort of concrete. But that was always, as far as I recall, if we're training new pilots, but in service, no, it would be mainly on landing that would happen, and as I say, the flight engineer would be monitoring the attitude of the aeroplane.
I see.
So
Okay. So the flight engineer is obviously in touch with in communications with the pilot, and he's telling him to give it a little bit more, pull the nose down a little bit. To reduce the flare.
All we say is attitude, and they would de-rotate the aeroplane.
Right. Yeah.
So
so you've either got good or bad attitude.
This is true.
Yes. Okay, let's move over to the engines, of course, extremely famous. It's the Olympus.
Yes, the Olympus engine. Originally, the Olympus was used in the Vulcan, the bomber.
Yes.
But the TSR-2, of course, as well. But this is a vastly developed engine compared to these engines. The original engines, I think they developed maybe the very first one's probably about 12,000 pounds of thrust, and then they gradually increased to 20,000. We produced the straight engine without the reheater afterburner was 30,000 pounds of thrust, which was pretty high. But the reason they chose this engine was that in supersonic flight, a jet engine will only accept a supersonic airflow up to about 1.5 times the speed of sound. Then the airflow in the intake gets so disturbed it starts banging about. We call it engine surging. It's like backfiring.
Yes.
So
okay.
What happens is we had to slow it down. So we had this intake in the front to reduce that, because we wanted to go faster than 1.5 times the speed of sound.
And this is the intake here that we're talking about.
So this is the intake.
Yeah. So this is what Barnes-Wallis was involved with in terms of in terms of slowing the aircraft, the airflow down. Was it?
There was a lot of aerodynamic research went on throughout the sort of companies involved in Concorde, and of course Farnborough as well, and. They came up with this idea to slow the airflow down. The large doors in the roof of the intake, you see the ones with danger, but there's another door just behind that.
Yes.
And they are lowered under computer control. And they create lots of shock waves with the intake. And the series of shock waves are focused on the bottom lip of the intake there. And as the supersonic airflow goes through, that series of shock waves, it slows it down. So in 11 feet of intake, it goes from twice the speed of sound to half the speed of sound.
Wow.
So an amazing
section here.
Yeah. From the front of the intake to there, it slows it down.
Just where the Rolls-Royce sign is.
That's right.
Wow. That's an incredible feat of engineering.
And not only that, the intake in the cruise and supersonic flight, that gave you 70% of the thrust of the whole propulsion unit. 70%. The nozzles at the back, where we looked at earlier for thrust reverse, for landing and that, they opened up wide in supersonic flight, and they gave sort of about 18-20% of thrust. The engine only gave about 8%. Wow. But there was a whole concept.
The aerodynamics themselves were what actually pushed the aircraft forward into. Wow.
So the whole concept.
This just got it going, really.
It was all, each part relied on the other. But
yes. How interesting.
It was a tough old engine there, and as I sort of briefly mentioned, we reheat too. Now this was a thing normally only used on military aircraft.
Yes.
And we needed this because for the thrust we required on takeoff, it would really have meant we had to carry an extra engine. But once you didn't need it, then you're carrying all that weight.
Yes.
So we resorted to the reheater afterburning. And all it really was injecting fuel at the back of the engine, lighting it up, expanded the air a bit more and gave us the extra thrust. So it sounds a good idea. It did give us a thrust, but it used a lot of fuel.
Yes.
The fuel consumption was really very high, as it always is with reheat. And if you close into the back of the thing there, we sprayed fuel in.
I see the nozzles
in this round here, and the flame attached to this gutter, they called it, and that held the flame alight and working for the reheat.
Which is the famous shot that people have seen on
the
videos
flames coming out the back. You see these diamond shapes in various aeroplanes.
Yes.
So each bit of the sort of propulsion system relied on the other.
Yes, of
so
course.
It was an amazing concept.
So it all worked in unison very effectively. Fantastic. Well, Ian, we've, I think, finished our tour of the outside of the aircraft.
Right.
And we're going to go on board now.
Yes.
I believe we have sort of like hybrid, so to speak. It's half the actual the testing equipment, some of the testing equipment, and some of the cabin to show us. Okay, fantastic. Let's go.
Okay. Well,
so as we walk up, we can just have a look at these reverser buckets.
Oh yes, that's a good idea. Yep.
If I go up here, I can. There we go. That gives us a clear shot across the wing as well, so we can get a good idea of. So there we see that's
right. So this is the one in reverse.
Yes.
And the normal, when you were subsonic and taxiing takeoff, that bucket is 21 degrees. You can see there's a gap at the front there and also underneath, and that drew in air that diluted the airflow coming out of it.
I see.
And allegedly reduced the noise of the propulsion system.
Yes.
But when we became supersonic, these nozzles would open up right wide to their maximum.
So even beyond that, they'd expand beyond that.
Yeah, and that,
I see.
And that was, if you think of a rocket motor, you've got these sort of nozzles, if you remember the space shuttle.
Yes.
So that sort of looked a bit more like that, opened up.
I see. Wow, interesting. Yep. So here we get a really good idea of the wing profile as well, right up to the front of the aircraft. Tiny little windows, of course.
Yes. We'll see these inside.
So was the expansion? I know quite a lot of talk has been about the expansion of the aircraft in flight. The expansion and shrinkage back to. Is that something that was a problem in terms of the panelling on the aircraft at all?
Not really. Well, they obviously knew it was going to expand, because if you heat anything up, it's going to get bigger.
Yes.
And they reckoned it got 10 inches longer in supersonic flight. I don't know if anybody actually got out and measured it, but it obviously expanded. And when they built the interior in that, of course, the interior is all air conditioned.
Yes.
And that doesn't expand.
Yes.
But the outside does. So throughout the cabin there was various sort of points where there was effectively expansion joints. The various units were built on sort of, suppose you'd call it sliding rafts, and it was all trimmed over. You didn't see anything. But when we go in the flight deck, I'll show you where you would see the only bit in the airplane you saw this gap opening up, and that's just in the unit.
Famously seen that captain's.
Yeah, somebody stuck a hat in there. Yes.
Okay, let's go.
Right, this is the rear cargo door.
I see. Okay.
So
she carried cargo through here.
Yes.
When we say cargo, we're talking
baggage and usually high-value goods we carried in here.
I see. Okay, diamonds and things.
Yes, the odd one. So this was all the cargo hold here.
Wow, okay.
And that's the bulkhead. The other side of that is that big trim fuel tank.
I see. I'm with you. Yes. There's the bulkhead, and that's the fuel tank, and this is the cargo hold.
Yeah. And this part here is where the galley would be. So the galley was in this section. The rear doors were in the galley area, these doors, and then we would go into the cabin area.
Okay, so this is where the passengers would come in.
So
through here.
Well, no, that was only used for an emergency exit and to load catering.
Yes, I'm with you.
So the front left door is where the passengers come in.
Over the wing. So the front doors are obviously for the passengers. Yes. So we're seeing a piece of the exposed airframe here without the coverings.
That's right.
It's quite interesting.
So if you can get a close-up, you'll see the technique of machining these special aluminium-based alloys was, instead of riveting sort of ribs on, they had a big billet of metal, and they milled away the unwanted material.
I see,
So
I
the
see.
huge bits of metal, the big sort of forgings produced,
Yes.
and this new technique of machining, computerized machining, to produce these little individual things.
I see.
Then at various
Right,
points,
yes.
skinning and you know, increased
Yes, yes.
frames were put in.
So a new, so new techniques of manufacture were actually brought forward when Concorde was manufactured as well.
Teflon coatings, use of lasers and things like that, all
Interesting.
come into being.
That's great. That's great. Wonderful. Okay, so moving forward.
Well, this is the rear cabin up to the bulkhead you see up there.
Yes.
And what they did was, although this had passenger seats in it for the development sort of stage and route proving and things, when it came to the museum, this was really just a shell. So they decided to put certain things on display. Along the top edge there's a little sort of timeline telling you the various aspects of how they developed Concorde. And then they've got various little sort of artifacts and things on display.
Yes, yes.
And also in here you see the little TV monitors there. So that gives you tells a story of supersonic flight, the development done, the things, the procedure it went through, and then it shows you the video of how they actually got this aeroplane up from Filton. They dismantled it. They actually cut it up and then brought it on various trucks here. And the company, they've done several aircraft. They also did the one that's up in Edinburgh. So the aeroplane was reassembled here, along with lots of companies involved. But there was a big team of enthusiasts, volunteers that came in and put this all together, which was an amazing achievement. One chap to mention, he works for a company, and he was so enthusiastic about this, he actually managed a lot of this. He was his team leader.
Oh, right.
And he also did the simulator as well.
Oh, okay, okay. So, really keen, a real keen enthusiast.
Oh, yes, so talented.
Yes.
But yeah, Gordon, he was a very enthusiastic person, still is.
Okay, so that's quite interesting. There, that's obviously the wind tunnel testing as well.
Yes,
Which is again, I would imagine that they probably built wind tunnels specifically for the testing. Did they, or
yes.
did they use existing wind tunnels? But because of the needs for the different aerodynamics, they maybe had to develop new.
Well, there was a lot of wind tunnels. The main ones were at Farnborough, and they did a huge amount of development on these wind shapes there. They did have a supersonic wind tunnel here, but it was really quite small. It wasn't as sort of large as that.
As the vortex that you were talking
and
about.
that's exactly it.
It's very, very interesting.
And all that sort of swirling air, that's creating drag as well as the lift.
Yes, yes. So it's a fine line between the two. You have to balance it out.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so we're moving forward now. Now, was this the headgear that was actually used by test pilots, or?
Well, during the testing of the aircraft, of course, this was a new thing, and you're getting something that's been so many years in designing and development. They're going to take all the precautions they can. So yes, okay, they used these various things, special sort of flying gear and stuff.
Very Americanized, that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Interestingly as well, we discussed earlier on, John was mentioning about the length of wiring looms that were used on each aircraft. Was it, how was it, 9 miles or something?
Or something like that. He mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
But you can see all this wiring, how tiny it is. Absolutely amazing. Very, very tiny. You can see a small
very
insulation
fine,
is.
very fine, yes.
And they were, of course, all identified with codings and that all connected up.
Each individual wire served a purpose.
Yes.
So you've got some lovely models.
These are the airlines that were going to buy Concorde.
Yes, of
But
course.
when things started sort of going wrong, the fuel crisis in '73, prices rocketed.
Yes.
And of course, United States, Boeing, they decided they weren't going to go ahead and build their supersonic aeroplane.
Yes.
They were wanting to go much faster than us, and it was going to be hugely expensive. They changed, so the competition disappeared. So a lot of these airlines decided they weren't going to go to the expense of it. So it just came down to Air France and ourselves.
Yes. Great shame.
Yes.
Great shame. But there you go. That's
the market.
That's the way things work out. So some memorabilia here, collectibles.
Yes, on scheduled flights, the passengers were presented with a little specially commissioned gift. And that on the charter flights we had as well, the passengers would also get a special gift. It was a very nice plastic model of a Concorde, really nice.
Lovely.
If I can draw your attention to this.
Yes.
I mentioned the intakes, the computer control.
Yes.
Now, when Concorde first flew, they didn't have intakes working. They were under development, and what they found was analog computers wouldn't be able to control the intakes.
Yes.
So this is actually a digital computer. If you look at all the cards, all hand-assembled things, you compare that with technology nowadays.
Oh, it would be the size of a grain of sand or a grain of rice. Literally, you could get all of that.
That was it. It was the first case of digital computers being used in an aircraft.
Yes.
Now, there were other aeroplanes looking at digital computers. For example, the TSR-2, they were going to build a head-up display, and that was before that, but of course nothing came of that. But this was actually used.
So we'll be able to see that panel on the flight
see the
deck
panel. That's the panel there, that bit.
Yes.
But you'll see that on the flight deck.
So a critical part of the actual aircraft performance was the air intakes.
Yes,
Okay.
So as we come forward, these are instruments.
Yes. Artificial horizon.
Yes, you'll see the technology involved. It is a mechanical instrument, although it's got lots of electrics.
Yes.
Compare that to modern aircraft.
Yes.
We'll talk about it.
But the good thing is that even in modern aircraft these days, they still have a
digital
version. Yeah,
but
they have
not all
a
of them.
natural one. Yes.
This was a section of the tank liner they fitted for the modification. You could get back into the air.
Yes.
That was it there.
And that's them constructing
That's
it here.
them assembling it here.
Assembling
Yes.
it here, yes.
And
great.
this little aeroplane boom, well, they're developing a much smaller aeroplane, but it would fly at the same speed as Concorde. And they're going forward, getting backing in that, and hopefully that'll be in service Sunday.
Most definitely.
This little section.
A little bit of cabin here. Now these are onboard computers, I'm guessing.
Right. Now this was only for development thing. This is an example of what they carried on other airplane, the other predecessors of this particular aeroplane.
Yes.
So there's banks of these huge recorders. Look at the size of the discs to get the data.
Yes.
So you can see this was a long time ago. This is old technology.
Most definitely. And again, that one particular unit there would be about that big.
Oh yes,
now,
absolutely.
just tiny.
Yeah.
which is just, it's great to see technology move on like it has.
This section here, this is an example of the various seats, the interiors that Concorde had in British Airways throughout the years. So over the ages, the one at the front there, that's the original one. The actual material here isn't actually correct. The material was a striped sort of thing, a bit like a deck chair, to be honest. The only place that I know where they've actually got an example of this is up in Edinburgh,
Right.
at East Fortune. So through the ages, this is what we had originally, and that was quickly changed, you know, at the end of the 70s. Then we went to the 80s, and then on the other side went to the 90s. And at the very back, the blue one is the one that they were beginning to fit to the aircraft to go back into service
Right.
after the Air
see,
France
yes.
thing.
Yes. Okay, so that's the most up-to-date and recent one that they were
Yes.
planning to use.
Uh-huh.
Okay, right. Moving on into the. Okay, so now we're in the. Now we're actually in the cabin.
So this is the forward cabin. We didn't have different classes. You know, in the aeroplane, front was the same as the back. There was
Yes.
no fare difference or anything like that.
Yes.
And here you can see the example of you know, the seating. It was a small aeroplane, but what people forget is when Concorde was being designed, we hadn't seen a 747. We hadn't seen a wide-bodied aeroplane.
Yes, of
so
course.
we're looking at, you know, things like a 707,
Yes.
DC-8s, that
Yes.
sort of thing, and of course smaller aeroplanes. But it had to be this size. It couldn't be like a jumbo jet to fly at these speeds.
Yes, I think. I mean, to be honest with you, even though it's not overly tight in here, and the leg room is just exceptional. That's the one thing that really stands out.
Well, the aircraft was licensed to carry 128, not
Yes.
100. But we only ever put 100 seats in it because that suited the market better. And of course, it was a premium product, and you wanted to give it at least decent leg room. We did do.
I think in the late 80s, it was still about £7,000 for a one-way to New York or something like that.
Well, there's all these things. I could write a book on these different ideas that people come up with.
Yes, yes.
The fares did change throughout the years. I think a better way of comparing the cost of flying in Concorde was it ranged between, well, virtually the same as a first-class fare on a subsonic aeroplane.
Yes, yes.
Only for a short period, I might add, to up to 20% increase. But it was always an increment on top of first class. But that fare did vary.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
it was altered to sort of fit the market. If the
I
load
see.
factor dropped, then we dropped the
prices.
price. If
Yes.
it went up, we increased the
Yes,
prices.
yes.
So it was very well managed. Within the Concorde fleet, we had a separate Concorde division set up within the airline. So we were, you know, separated away. That eventually came into effect in about 1980.
I see. Okay.
And
Okay.
that was managed by two of the pilots that were on the fleet.
Okay, so we're walking through there now into coming up through past where I'd imagine the galley is, would it be?
Yes, this is the front galley,
Yep.
and we've got the toilet here, which I might add, we didn't have a glass door on the toilet in the real
No.
aeroplane. But this came in round about the mid 80s, and
Still a decent size.
This was a new thing. We had electric taps. You just pressed an electric button, so that was quite a novelty.
That is a novelty for those days, isn't it?
But you see, it was quite compact up here. But
Yes.
you can see the aeroplane, it's reducing in height as we go forward.
Yes, yes. Okay, so we're now going into the flight deck, and
Yes.
we are meeting up with James.
With James, yes, James is up here all ready for us.
Okay, let's just.
And you see, as we come in here, this is where all these electronic boxes were. If something was, a system wasn't working right, it was a
So fuses
easy
and trip
problem.
switches and
we
stuff
could,
like
we
that.
could pull this off and change the appropriate black box.
Okay.
Get it working.
Well.
And these are circuit breakers, fuses.
Yes.
So
Okay,
We'll go up
fantastic.
here,
So,
yeah.
James,
Good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, well, I'm here now.
So you you actually are responsible for putting it back to operational.
Yes, I started in 2012. It took 4 years. Got it working in June 2016 for her 10th anniversary of her opening, and then it's been operating ever since. Hopefully she'll work today. One of the micro switches is being a bit, so hopefully she's being okay today. So we'll see.
So what is the normal procedure then?
Right, on this
it is a 3-stage. Is that right?
Yes. So on this aircraft, because of her history, she's missing a few bits. The procedure for this specific aircraft is slightly different. That we have to pull the emergency release handle to get the nose down. But shall I just go through it now then? Shall
Yes,
I start?
most
Right,
definitely.
so
Yep.
so first you need to turn hydraulic pressure on, and then it works as per it should do from the normal nose and visor selector
So
valve.
the visor's coming down now.
Yep, that goes into the nose.
Yes.
So I cycle it a few times at each section just to push
I
some
see.
new fluid through.
Okay.
He just likes playing with it.
So yes, at this point, normally when the visor goes down, I'd be able to just go to the next section, which is nose 5 degrees. But on this aircraft, I have to pull this handle,
Okay.
which is not normal operation, and then the nose comes down.
And the nose will drop.
Yeah.
And from
Do you
the
want to
pilot-
bring that up again and I'll nip down and get it?
Yeah, no,
going
we'll
down?
take it all. If you want to stick your camera down there, we'll
Yeah,
just...
if you got there, you'll
That's
see
going to
it.
be difficult. That's going to be quite difficult, I think. Let's just have a little look. Okay, just stand by. Okay, yep. So that's the nose lowering now. You can feel it going home as well.
So there should be a nice click. Sure is.
Okay.
So this is the point where she was misbehaving, and she's working this morning.
Oh, perfect.
There we go.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Ian, once that was in position, you knew you were sort of like on your way, so to speak.
Oh yes.
So, at what point was that? Was the nose raised? Was it how long after takeoff?
Well, we had to comply with various air traffic instructions and things.
Yes.
But if we went above 270 knots, that's 300 miles an hour, then we streamlined the aeroplane. We put the nose and visor up, and it became fully streamlined. And then, of course, as we slowed down through 300, we put it all down again.
Yes.
So we went to the mid position, as James had mentioned there, 5 degrees with the visor down, and then just before landing we'd pop the nose fully down. So 5 degrees was the mid position, and fully down was 12.5 degrees.
Okay.
And as you saw when it was down there, we probably picked up in the camera, the pilot sitting up in his position, he'd have a clear view of the runway.
Yes.
It
Yes.
wasn't obstructed or anything.
Yeah, and the main reason for the nose was a visibility thing, wasn't it?
Yes.
So that at the pitch, at the actual flare, the pitch of the aircraft,
Yes.
angle of attack, so to speak, you could, because the nose being pitched forward, you could actually see beyond it.
Yes, well, the sort of final approach, but the pilot would be flying about 10.5 degrees nose up attitude, so you wouldn't see over the nose.
Yes.
If you think of the older fighters or Spitfires and things like that, when they're sitting on the ground, you've got this big nose in front of you.
Yes.
It'd be a bit like that. You just
Yes.
wouldn't see where you're going.
Yes.
So they needed to invent this, and that was all designed here at Brooklands. They come up with this idea and got the configuration. But you can see that with all this curvaceous shape and the streamlining to fit in with the rest of the aeroplane, quite a challenge to make it all move like this. And James does a great job getting it to work like this for demonstration.
It fits like a glove, literally, doesn't it?
Yeah. I would like to add, he hadn't cleaned the windows there.
No, brilliant job, James. Thank you. And you must be proud of being part of doing that.
Yes, it's I've been in there soldering wires, fixing stuff in -1, -2 degrees, but it's
Goodness me.
rewarding that on the day when we can show off that.
So how did you actually come to offer your services to do this then?
My dad, before DG arrived on Concorde's final flights, he started to take me up to Heathrow, so we'd see her on the final July, August, September, October, November period. We'll go down to Heathrow, and then we met up with a chap called Gordon Roxburgh, who is our Concorde team leader, so to speak. And then we all got involved when I was 14 years old down here when she first arrived, so I was here when she first arrived. Then I got involved with the volunteer team, so I've been here 15 years next year. And then in 2012 I did my university dissertation on what would all this system look like in the modern, if it was done now today. And then we thought, well, why don't we make it work? So from that point onwards, for 4 years I started fixing it. I had to work out a brand new wiring diagram for it because we don't have the wiring diagrams for it. We had to recreate some of the hydraulics.
Wow.
So essentially, yeah, it's 4 years of my life to get this thing.
Wow, fantastic.
Again, so.
It's your baby then, isn't it? Really?
Well,
He produced some great diagrams and drawings.
I bet.
Far better than we ever had at the beginning.
That's incredible. And you actually had to design and develop revised hydraulic program
it's
systems?
because this nose fairing actually came off the one at Filton, so there was an accident at Heathrow. So DG donated her nose, the one that's now at Filton, and then this is the one at Filton. But it was halfway through being refurbed when she stopped flying. So all the systems in the movable part of the nose down there wasn't there. So we had to effectively recreate all of that. Everything in kind of the fuselage structure, so everything under the floor here was still there.
So
that
there
just
is
needed overhauling.
So there is a considerable amount of hydraulic pumps and moving parts underneath here.
There's a hydraulic pump under the floor there.
Yes.
It's not, so it plugs into where the original hydraulic supply would have come from the engines.
Yes.
And then it works almost as it should. Once we've got the two parts that are missing, then it'll work 100% like it should.
Well, it seems to be working today. So should we nip outside?
Yes.
Ian, and check the operation one more time.
I believe
Thank you so
Roger
much, James.
has joined us next.
Yes. We'll introduce you to Roger when we come out.
Okay. Righty-ho. Still backing up. Diddle-it. Hello, sir.
Hello.
You're Roger.
Yes.
Nice to meet you, Roger. I'm Jerry.
Jerry.
Very nice to meet you. So tell us about yourself then, Roger.
I'm a volunteer down here. 45 years of British Airways, licensed aircraft engineer on the Concorde and some subsonic stuff. One of the team that come down here on a Wednesday particularly, and we look after, maintain, try and improve the aeroplane.
Wonderful.
Yeah, all the little projects we have are for the benefit of customer information and improve what we offer to them.
And it must be good to obviously you've got thousands of people coming through the gates every year, just educating them on Concorde, because obviously a lot of people know about Concorde. There's a lot to learn about Concorde online, but to see it in the flesh and actually learn about it from somebody who's qualified on the aircraft as well must be fantastic, as it is for me.
It is, yes. We do get a lot of people asking questions and put to bed some theories that aren't quite right.
Yes, right.
As I previously mentioned.
Okay, well, we're going to nip down the steps now, and we're going to get a quick look of her at the nose being raised and lowered again.
Okay, with you.
Okay. Let's have another go. He's opened the window. You up there, James?
You ready for us?
Okay, get that visor up, sir. So now we're going to see the visor up. This is the... Okay. Is it going to fail on us today? Okay. So at this point, this is where, at what point would the visor be down?
We always did it together. So we did the visor went down, and then we selected the nose 5 degrees. We didn't fly
That's
about.
the nose 5 degrees now.
So that's 5 degrees now.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's 12 and a half. The original prototype, that was about 17 degrees it went down, but we didn't need it that low.
Right.
So it was then limited.
So that is at its fullest now?
Yes.
Wow. That is so impressive. And up she comes. So it would be always in those 2 increments there.
Yes.
And is he going to get the visor up?
He was playing up.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
If it doesn't work, it will give him something to do with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's
It might be
a bit like our equipment.
Yeah, he switched
it off. There we go.
Could I just make one observation?
Yes, sir.
You saw how cramped it was up there in the flight deck?
Yes.
And under the floor, there's lots of different. There's guys like Roger here. They did the work on Concorde. Everything was cramped. It was all a big sort of fiddle. You can see, I'm really quite small here. But
well, some of the access was, like Ian says, was through the flight deck floor. The seat had to come out, the engineer's seat particularly, which was a bit of an art in itself. But other access was underneath, because there were relay jacks, one on top of the other. The same with field jacks, and some were access on top, some were underneath, and some were between 2 panels. It was an interesting aeroplane to work on.
And when you say those sorts of tasks and procedures, is that something that's once the aircraft comes back from an operation, from a flight, are there certain regular procedures that need to be checked, or
No.
is it periodical?
It was periodical, but mainly they were defects. Bear in mind that it was a fly-by-wire aeroplane, so that most of the time we dealt with the mechanical backup system, which the crews rarely, if ever, used. But they were the systems that gave us, if you like, the problems. The fly-by-wire side of it was actually very reliable, very good.
Was it really? Even though it was quite, it was very early, stages of fly-by-wire, wasn't it?
Well, yes, it was. But for instance, setting up the flying controls, you had electrical systems, and then there was a mechanical system. Well, if anything happened, the changeover between the two had to be seamless, so that the flying controls didn't kick. And rigging those flying controls to go from blue to green to mechanical was, yes, it was. There was a challenge. There was a thing on the PFCUs called the Messerschmitt thread, and the adjustment of which was tricky.
Yes.
It was something that had to be experienced to believe it. It was good. The aeroplane was actually very good. The air conditioning system gave us a lot of problems, but there again it was a very hard work system, because today you have to heat people up. As it climbed up into Super Cruise, they'd want to be cooled down.
Yes.
When it got to New York, they had to be warmed up again. So the system was hard worked, and we worked hard on it.
So the air conditioning on modern jets these days is bled from the engines. Was that something that was done on this as well?
Yes.
Was that another early sort of like development, really, as far
yes.
as air conditioning was concerned?
The VC-10 had a Godfrey compressor, which was a separate entity from the engine.
I see.
The Americans at the time didn't like bled air from the engines, but nowadays it's all engine bleed air.
Yeah. So, but you enjoyed working on it?
Oh, it was, yes. It was a unique experience. I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to do it. It was one of those things, years ago we had British fleets with BOAC and BEA, and then American fleet. And it more or less, when you left the British fleet, you carried on with the Concorde, and then when the 747s came in, obviously the 707 guys went onto those.
Yes.
So it wasn't anything, although the rumours were that we were a picked bunch, that actually wasn't the case. It was just a transfer from one fleet onto another because it was a British aeroplane.
Did you actually get to fly with her as well?
Yes.
How many times did you fly on her?
Over 30. Mainly...
Was that to go to places as an engineer to work on a
initially, when we first had the aeroplane in the late 70s, when the crews were doing training, we went as flying spanners. So if it had to divert anywhere, there was someone there who could actually refuel it and, you know, change a wheel, that kind of thing. But lots of the trips were, funnily enough, to New York, which is where the destination was mainly, but there were one or two interesting ones, one of which was the thin lip mod, and they allowed engineers to go up on the training flights on those, and we went negative G. So I've flown around the cabin on this, I walked on the ceiling in it. It's an awesome experience. But like the Vomit Comet, it's true, it's very, makes you feel sick.
Really?
Yeah. It was quite interesting because I can't remember the captain's name, but when we were going to go negative, he actually said, well, lads, we're going negative, do your seatbelts up. We undid the seatbelts and started flying around the cabin. It's an awesome experience.
Yes, yes.
But the aeroplane was full of things like that. It was different from the subsonics. Different in maintaining it, different in the aspects, different in the way it flew.
Yes.
I mean, I expect Ian said there's no high lift devices on it. It just flew in on the back of the drag curve.
Yes.
So our input really was just in the complicated fuel system and the
maintaining the general aspects of the aircraft.
High input aeroplane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially as Ian was mentioning earlier, as the intakes, which were computer controlled, which
yes,
just such a short piece of equipment that's 11 feet long can reduce such a high speed.
Yep.
That's
and
so
yet it was,
impressive, and all computer controlled.
Yes, and very reliable, very reliable. In fact, probably the most problems we had, again, was with actually the play on the bearings on the ramps, particularly the rear ramp. An awful lot of work on that. That's where the thrust was felt.
Right.
And changing the bearings and making sure you had the right shims in between to fit it and rig it correctly. That was also one of those Concorde interesting jobs.
So, just one final thing: the mast that's on the top of the fuselage there, is that just a comms mast for radio?
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
That
Definitely not Wi-Fi.
Somewhere.
Well, fantastic, gents. Thank you so much. Glad we got to meet you and got to have a chat with you. Ian, thank you so much. We're going to be meeting up with you again in the simulator in around about 20 minutes, I believe. We're going to have a quick circuit around Surrey from Heathrow, maybe dive bomb Brooklands as well, and have
fly under Tower Bridge.
I know, well, we've not got it up running.
Thanks, gents. We'll catch up with you in a little bit, and yes, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
Did it get stuck?
Yeah, it's stuck. I think it's one of the motor switches.
Better don't use it.
With a hammer.
Hammer doesn't sort it, you need a bigger hammer.
Screwdrivers.
Well, there you go, folks. What an amazing, complex piece of technology from all those years ago. Just goes to show no, it just goes to show how many clever people there are in this world, you know, from an initial concept, an idea on the back of a serviette or whatever it might be, back of a fag packet or whatever it was back then, to something that was designed and developed, and then flew, and then all the aerodynamics, just the whole fitting everything into it because it had to be a certain size. I could talk to people like that, Roger, all day long, man. I mean, just in terms of the complexity of, you know, just the doors, you know, those shutter doors alone, you know, him saying about the shims in the bearing, you know, on the bearings needed to be absolutely the perfect size, because you know, just tolerances were, I think, thousandth of a millimeter. But yeah, incredible, and great to meet those wonderful people there as well. If you ever visit Brooklands, you'll see that you'll get to meet a lot of folks there who used to fly on the Concorde or with British Airways. Lots of volunteers that hang out down at Brooklands. But definitely go visit it. Even if you're not into race cars, it's still a fascinating look round the sheds that they've got there. All the original old sheds and some of the old cars that used to race around that oval track. Not completely oval, it was a sort of like, you know, had a bit of a straight on it at Brooklands. But look it up, Brooklands Racing, when it all started, and the history of both that and also development of the Concorde there, as well as, you know, they've got a huge wind tunnel there, a really old big wind tunnel, wooden as well. It's just an incredible place to look around, like all the different engines. Really interesting stuff to look. Take the kids there, or just go down there on your own if you've got you know, if you've got an interest in history. But anyway, there we go, folks. That was great. Thanks for watching, and thanks for your patience with the mic as well. It's it's never a good thing. Even I was like, oh mate, I've had enough of this. But yes, there we go. So a lot of people putting in requests to what shows they want to see. If you want to send in a request, folks, for a show, anything in particular, as detailed as you possibly can. That's what's really important. You know, when the show was, if it was a members show that you never got to see. Maybe anything you want to see, put a request in. I know a lot of people are asking for military stuff. We're going to do a military day, I think, folks. I think that's probably the best thing to do, is just you know, put some, because we've got enough there basically to put a full day's worth of viewing together. But if you've got any requests, send them to feedback@bigjet.tv. Excuse me, bit of mini roll there. feedback@bigjet.tv. Oh, okay. Odd bit of mini roll. Oh, have a drink of me fake coffee. It's real. It's real. Can't believe somebody the other day said that. Is that real coffee he's drinking, or is it fake? Anyway, fair play. It's amazing, isn't it? I don't understand how in the soaps and in the shows and stuff like that you see on TV where they're supposed to have a cup of coffee. You know, Coronation Street in particular. It's just the set department. I don't know. Are they lazy or what? You know, or the set director. He's either lazy or they do it on all the other soaps and shows and stuff like that as well, where they walk out of Costa, because the show's sponsored by Costa. There's got a massive Costa on the street. They walk out with like four coffees, and you know, they stop in the street. Oh, hello Vera, how are you doing? And they're all talking like that, and he's like, well, I don't know really, and he's carrying 4 coffees like this. And, yeah, well, you know. Or they're carrying a coffee, and they completely forget the fact that they're carrying a coffee. So they're supposed to be full, innit? He's just walked out of Costa with a full cup like that, and he's like, "Hello, how are you doing?" "Yeah, no, I know. It's like, you know, I was. He came round, and I was just, I wasn't very. Yeah, sorry. He came round, and he was. But anyway, I massively digress, as I always do. Very funny piece sent in from one of our friends on Twitter. Who followed us the other day. He's a very funny guy. He's a pilot, and he cut a piece with me talking about the A380 being available at Tesco's, and it's just sort of like, you know, snowballed into this whole thing of you know, people nipping down to Tesco's and
They run out of 380s, they've only got 350s left, you know, all that kind of thing. Anyway, it's very, very funny. You had to be there if you were watching the quiz last night, you know what I'm talking about. But he sent in a video grab of that very moment that it happened, and it was a genuine stupid mistake. God knows why I was thinking Tesco's, because I don't even shop there, I shop at Sainsbury's. So, anyway, where are we going next? Yes. That's too high, obviously. Far too high. Some cloud over there. There's something definitely flying over the top. Don't know if you can hear it. Anyway, so a few people yesterday, a couple of people asking today about Manchester. Obviously, look back in the archives to yesterday, and you'll see that we played out Manchester South Bank yesterday. But just for your delectable delight, you want to get some hardcore close-up action back into your bloodstream just for this afternoon. A couple of hours worth of Big Jet TV live from the airport pub at Manchester. Great position again. Very fortunate to know Terry up there. He's a lovely diamond geezer who lets us go up onto the balcony. It's where you might have seen Sky Sports. Sky Sports. And there's anyway, you might have seen Sky News up there from time to time doing reports and stuff like that, but this is where the Maxes are parked at the other end of the airport, so it's north, it's to the east, I think east side. But this airport pub is notorious. It's a fantastic place to visit. Got a great big garden there where you can take the kids or yourselves or family or whatever, and he was open post-COVID, but obviously I guess he's had to shut down again for the time being. Just keep an eye out on their website for when they're back open. Got a great menu. It's themed inside as well. You can sit inside an engine cowling, you know, when you're having dinner, or you can sit out in the orangery, or out in the covered. There's also a covered heated area as well as, of course, the play area for the kids and all that sort of thing. And then there's a fence that basically goes around where you can go and stand up right next to it. And well, you won't see it anymore, but when the 747s used to go out of there, they used to turn on like this. And there's some videos on YouTube that you can see where the engines just whipped up this massive amount of, like, you know, all the papers flying everywhere, people like you know, perhaps not that bad, but anyway, so this position that you're going to see now is pre-Max. This is before the Maxes got parked right here by the airport pub, which basically kind of ruined it in terms of our filming, because they closed off the full length run-on taxiway. But this video is before that, where they had the full length taxiway, and we've got a Boeing 747 going out right in front of us. I think maybe Cathay's A350. But hey, this isn't the Cathay A350 one, is it, Julie? But anyway, this is Manchester Airport from the airport pub. Best wishes to everybody up there in Manchester, and M62. Right, play that video, Julie. Oh no, we're not. We're having a break. Stupid boy, right. Put the coffee down. Right, we're having a break. We're going to have a break. We're going to be back. It was 4 o'clock. I think we're going to be back at 4 o'clock, folks. Yeah, come back at 4 o'clock, about half an hour. We just got to upload this to the system, and we'll play this out. So we'll see you in a bit. Okay, now cut, Jilly.